So I want to welcome everybody to best practices to engage your stakeholders. This is a topic that's near and dear to my heart, not only because of my customer enablement role, but I have 20 plus years in MCO, quality and disease management, and utilization management and care management and government programs, where it was always one of the things that we were really focused on in trying to engage members and participants in the offerings that we had for folks. I am the Vice President of Customer Enablement here at Sandata Technologies. And so that means that I, as a general rule, I have responsibility for the training department, the customer communications department or program communications, and the technical documents, customer-facing technical documents area. I'd like to let everybody know that I am not one for formality. This is meant to be a discussion. I may ask you some questions. And if you have a question or a comment you'd like to make, please go ahead and make it. Your microphones are open, and this is really not meant to be me talking at you, but I'd love for you to share your experiences and your best practices that you've noticed in your careers, because I'm sure nobody's new in this space. Let's get started. So first, let's talk a little bit about the barriers, the key barriers to engagement. One of the key barriers that we have in engaging participants in our technology and in programs in general are communication barriers. Right now, we're all fully aware that there is attention competition is one of the biggest things we face. Attention competition is a matter. If you open up your email, what you'll find is a huge list of emails, all saying that they're vitally important, and maybe even telling you that they are from do not reply senders. Our ability to capture the attention of the people we want at the time we need to capture it is constantly being threatened by all kinds of alternative distractions coming at them. We all struggle with contact information or the quality of the contact information that we have for folks. That may be that we don't have up-to-date information. It may be that they've received so many communications from similar types of companies or similar types of programs that they may block communications that come from us. Last, language barriers. And I think that commonly language barriers, people think foreign language, but it may be we're speaking a different language when we look at our use of jargon, our use of acronyms, our use of language that is not at the grade level or understanding level of the people that we're trying to communicate to. I thought it was really interesting when I'm a nurse by training, and when I moved from the clinical practice into disease management, we use a lot of acronyms in disease management that were the same as acronyms we used in the hospital. And I didn't understand what people were saying because we were saying the same things, but we weren't understanding it the same way. Our ability to translate what is a common language for us into the language of our stakeholders or our customers or our participants is really critical to engagement at the level we want to have. Lack of technology skills. We frequently in this day and age expect everyone to be fully fluent in the use of apps, in the use of software, in the use of computers, in the use of a keyboard. But there are varying abilities in that area. And do they have the right kind of phone to use the offering that we're making available? So we need to be sensitive to that, and we need to plan for that. Perceptions of value. When we look at perceptions of value, what I'm talking about is, how is this program or this application going to be of value to the customer? And when we look at the top of the food chain, so we have the person who has purchased our program. So that may be a state payer or an MCO. And when we look at that and we say, what's valuable to them is having this information, number one. So we have government compliance with the CARES Act. Number two, that we're making sure that the service plans and care plans that are being created by care managers and utilization staff are being complied with, and that the participants are getting the services that they need to be safe and healthy in their homes. And then we move down to the agency team. Well, the agency team really wants to get their claim adjudicated as quickly as humanly possible in order for it to be paid as quickly as humanly possible. And so that they can stay in the business, so they can keep doing what is at their core, which is delivering service to their clients. And then lastly, we have the caregivers who their key focus is in delivering the care that they're meant to be delivering to help that person live the best possible quality of life. Well, if we look at what we're doing here along the whole continuum, by everybody using the technology easily, everyone meets their goals. Everyone meets their goals. And this is a key, but people's perception is, you're asking me to do something, just one more thing to add in there. I have all these other technologies. Why are you asking me to do this? I don't know how to use this. It's not working for me. I forgot my password. So they see it as a barrier rather than truly a way to get the value that they're hoping to get out of their jobs. And then last, the client gets the value of understanding that they're getting the services that they need. Right now, the vast majority of folks we're working with don't really have good carrots or sticks, other than compliance with regulation. So how can we work around that? How can we deal with that barrier and having people understand the value that a program brings to that community? So in overcoming barriers, we're going to talk about some ways to do that. Number one, key is defining the audience, and we'll go into detail in each of these things. Having a clear target for what you're trying to communicate and who you're trying to bring into your program is really critical in the effectiveness of what you're trying to do. Second, you're going to tailor your message. You want to make sure that the message that you're delivering achieves the goals that you're meaning to achieve with that communication. So if it's something like, I want people to register to use the technology, well, you need to tailor your message to have that clear to that person receiving that message. Last, selecting modes. How are we going to get the messages out there? How are we going to hook people in to using the technology, ultimately to meeting all the goals that the customer and the agency have for their staff? Last, we want to define and measure success. And there are several reasons why you want to define and measure your success. But if you're targeting an audience, you really want to understand if you've targeted correctly and if you've hit that bullseye. The vast majority of the time, the first time out of the gate, you wouldn't necessarily have hit the bullseye, but you can see how close you are to it, and you can make adjustments to do it better next time. And that's where it comes into applying our learnings. We're looking at all of these things. We're checking the tasks off the list of reaching out to people and trying to communicate with them. But the key steps are those last ones. What does success look like? And how are we getting there? and what do we need to do differently the next time? Those are the key things that are going to drive improvements in enablement, in engagement numbers. Okay, so the first key thing for your target is knowing your stakeholders. In looking at our particular technology, what you want to know is what the different roles are. And there are different roles within the system. There are different roles within the customer. There are different roles within the agencies that provide this service and use the technology. There are different technical skills, and the technical skills may be aligned with the roles, but it may not be. It may be aligned with the location, the geography, the access. It could also be, what are your communication options? Is email effective? Is there a website that people count on for information about a given program? What are those things that are important to the stakeholders? The second thing is, what are their values and their problems? Because if you can determine what their values and their problems are, you can communicate to them and share with them the pieces of the program that resonate most with them, that help them solve their problems, that help them bring more value to the job that they do, that help them help their clients live safe, healthy lives. Are there any, for the folks who are on the phone, are there any particular values or problems that you have found with your populations that sing out to you as the key things that drive their engagement in a program like this? What are they trying to accomplish? What are they, what is a win to them?
This is Andrea. I'll speak up. Their win, the stakeholders that I support, or some of them are the providers, their win is the ability to get paid quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, it really is. I think that looking at those providers, so many of them are smaller agencies who not getting paid quickly is life and death for their business. And life and death for their business means there's inadequate resources to serve all the clients that there are out there. And I think it's important when we communicate to them that we are sensitive to that, and that we speak in a language that shows that our empathy to their situation, and that how this particular solution will help them achieve those things. That it's not strictly looking at government compliance, which is critically important, but if sharing that goal to get them paid quickly helps us get it over the line, that's where we need to target our messages. Anybody else have anything that you've seen as particularly difficult?
This is Virginia Hudson, and I do a lot of outreach, one-on-one outreach. I have reports for the previous month's claims come into me, and on those reports it tells me what percentage of their claims hit EVV edits, and how much did they bill in total, and what percentage of those dollars would have denied if we were in hard launch. We're still in soft launch. We're hitting the edits, but we're still paying them. And I find when, before I started sharing with them percentages and dollars, they didn't really understand the impact. So here we are talking about things that they can relate to. So when I say 25% or 35% of your claims would have denied for EVV, which translates to this many dollars would have denied, that gets their attention. That really means that is a measurable thing that they can hold on to. They know about dollars and cents.
It makes it real for them.
It makes it real. And I could have said, 35% of your claims. Well, they don't know what, some people do. But when you start talking dollars and cents, I got a bunch more responses to my outreach when I started putting that dollar in there.
Isn't that interesting?
It
I
it
mean,
made a big
one
difference
simple
in
ad.
the response.
Mhm. Exactly.
Uh,
Exactly. And even if you look to that next level of getting the claim to be clean and processed on the first go, the first
mhm,
pass,
mhm.
that there's no rework, that there's
Right.
no additional contact with that file that needs to happen to get them their money.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's really amazing how powerful that can be.
Yeah. And then, unfortunately, it has caused many to sit and cry on the phone with me.
Seriously, I mean,
Yes,
honestly,
yes. I
exactly. These are very small businesses as a general rule.
sometimes, and sometimes they're big businesses,
Yes.
and
And they're
and
crying.
they
Oh,
they have, and it more. Yeah, I've had more than I would care to think about sitting
yeah.
on the phone crying to me, and I'm like, oh
Yeah.
no. And I do one-on-one. Um,
Meetings with them.
yeah, virtual meetings, and I walk them
Yeah.
if they're using an alternate vendor, walking them through the Sandata aggregator and with Sandata portal. I'll walk them through questions they have and teach them how to fix the exceptions. And you know, I just A to Z, whatever they
Mhm.
need. I need them to
Mhm.
get paid out of a selfish reason, because if they don't get paid when we do turn on these edits, who they gonna email?
Well, exactly.
Me.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
it's a very
And
selfish act I'm performing right now.
well, and if we look at that too, in the ultimate, if they don't get paid and if a business shuts down or if they don't have enough
The
caregivers,
members can't
then the
get the
members are going to be
services.
the ones, exactly. The members are going to be the ones who suffer.
And yeah, and that's why we've delayed it, because we don't want the members to not get services they
Mhm.
desperately need.
Exactly. And it's not like somebody hasn't gone in and very clearly defined what they need in
Mhm.
order for them to stay safe
Right,
and to have the best quality of life that is possible for them.
right.
And I think that also, even in looking at that, going back to tying it to utilization, if people want to look at that, that if
Uh-huh.
someone is not getting the care they need, I can guarantee you that it will tie back to hospital admissions and emergency department visits at a minimum.
Mhm.
And even looking at medication errors, if you don't have someone to help you with your medicines, how many medication errors are happening due to that fact.
Right, right.
In looking at communication successes, looking at how to communicate. So we need to, first of all, do we have the right contact information?
Yeah.
Do we have an up-to-date email? Do we have an up-to-date phone number? Do we have an up-to-date, even knowing who's doing that job? Looking for solutions in that space is challenging, but I do think that there's value in putting some focus there. Also, when to communicate. We all know that we come into our inboxes on Monday morning, we generally end up with a list of usually spamish kind of things, a few things from our bosses, and then a whole bunch of spammy kinds of things, because there's been an outreach or a push. Let's think about that. Let's think about whether that's the best time to send something like this out if we want to get people's attention. And what to communicate. And we'll talk in just a minute about that particular piece. So the next piece is tailoring our messages. So we know who we want to target. We know what their preferences and problems are. We know what we want to communicate. So how are we going to tailor that message? Well, what we found is that we really need to make the messages clear and concise. So we want to have a clear call to action. Why are you sending? What do you want me to do with the information that you're giving me in this communication? Is it that you want me to register for the technology? Is it that you want me to take a training? Is it that you want me to use a report of some sort? What is the call to action? What do you want the response to this email to be? Second, you want to use plain language. Business writing, they tend to tell you not to write more formally. But in this case, you want to write conversationally. You want to write in a way that welcomes them, that motivates them, and encourages them into the discussion. You want to not use jargon, not use acronyms, and not use company speak. You want to speak in a way, one of the key things that we're looking at documents right now is you put a word like download into a document. Well, there are a lot of people who won't understand what you're talking about. Credentials, that's another. I'm sending you your credentials. Here are your credentials. A layperson may not understand what that means. So we need to take that step back and test our messaging against those kind of parameters. Use short sentences. Use bulleted lists instead of paragraphs of information. You can always use infographics and pictures to convey the message and have them understand what you want them to do. You can always put deeper dive information behind the clear call to action communication that gives them more of the policy information or how-to information behind it. But that clear engagement hook needs to be very clear and very to what you're trying to achieve.
You pointed out the short blurbs versus long communication. Initially, 2 years ago, I was sending welcome letters for newly enrolled providers that would be required for EVV. And it was like 3 or 4 paragraphs. And I thought, you know what? People don't like to read. I don't like to read long emails.
Scan them.
And so I started going with an introductory 2 sentences and then bullet points. Boom, 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 boom. Here's a link to find this. Here's a link to find that. Just very short. And people read. I found evidence they were reading more of that than the other. So it is true. You send them a bunch of words, they're not gonna. No, I ain't got time for that right now.
Though your message will get lost. And while some people will respond to it, many others will not, because they won't understand what you've asked them to do.
Exactly.
Modes. And this is going to get to a little bit of what you just talked about too, Virginia. But again, we want to listen to our stakeholders. What are their preferences? Do they want email, text, websites, town hall meetings? What do they want? What's available? What do you have? What do we have that we can use to communicate? Is it text? Is it a short video? Is it, in the old days, postcards were really big. We did a study when I was working for one of the Blue Cross plans, the one down in North Carolina, and we were sending out engagement folders for our disease management program. So pregnant women and people with diabetes and people with heart failure and all these kinds of things. And we did a test where we sent one that looked like a EOB or a bill. And we did one that looked like it was a bigger thing that had this beautiful blue ribbon, like we're giving them a present. Which one do you think they opened? And that they responded to, and that got us more people joining our health programs?
I would have opened the present.
You're a good woman. They opened the bill. They opened the bill. And we also found that if we didn't deal with their claims concerns and stress, that they weren't willing to work with the nurse case managers that that were there to help them and help them navigate the healthcare system. So once we got the nurses solving their initial problem, then they were sold, then they were hooked. They were loyal to that nurse because she helped them, and they worked on improving their health and getting the care they needed to be in maintenance rather than an emergency rescue for all the things that they did. I'm going to send you a present.
Thank you. I like presents as much as I like my Amazon boxes that come.
Well, and that it's that time of year too, isn't it?
It is.
Oh, the other thing is incentives. We had incentive for the pregnancy program was my major one of my major programs ultimately. I was a labor and delivery nurse for many years. And we gave away a $1.99 cassette tape of lullabies. And it caused our enrollment to skyrocket. Don't put aside any kind of a carrot that you can give someone, no matter how crazy you think it is. You know, there's always something that you need to understand might be something that can move an important needle. The other thing with this particular thing is in communicating with the providers, the agencies, how are they going to pass that information on if they need to pass it on? So if you're communicating something that needs to then be translated or communicated to the caregivers, can we make that easier? Can we give them a brochure or a flyer or a template email that they can use and tweak to their style that can get sent to those caregivers or provided to those caregivers? It gets something off their plate. It's easy to use. The message gets delivered, and it gets delivered to the caregiver audience as opposed to the agency audience, because those are two different audiences. It may be a similar message, it may be the same message, but it hits both those audiences by us helping them by having something that can be delivered to them as a click-in and a download that they can share with their teams. Have an understanding of what's worked in the past. Know what they've opened, know what they've responded to. Virginia, what you were talking about is really important to that. And does it need to go by more than one mode? Oops. Ooh. Hit the roller too fast. Okay. Define and measure success. I think this is one of the critical things that we sometimes pass up on. What does success look like? What is onboarding success? Is it that people are registered? Is it that people have received their credentials because they've taken the training? Watching that path, looking at people as compared to the norm, and determining if they're on the right path or is there some correction we need to take. Are your communications working? One of the most interesting things I've learned, and I've learned this about several things, Amazon being one of those things, is that if you're sending out a communication, you can get statistics on that communication. How many people received it? How many opened it? How many were blocked? How many clicked on the links? What links did they click on in that communication to determine, did you get in? Did they look at it? And did you make connection there? And then you can look at the key performance indicators of, did the purpose of that communication work? Did somebody enroll for something you wanted them to enroll in? Did someone start using a program that they hadn't been using before? You know, things like that. The bounce back communication measure is really interesting because it not only measures what your communication contact information is like, but it also goes that next step. And you can see based upon a perception by a percentage of how many were blocked. They could be blocking you because they're so numb from all the communications they've been receiving from you, and they may have blocked you. And so it's really important to think about that and to analyze your block rates so that you are not, so that people aren't missing the ultra important messages. And also making sure that you're sending them the messages that you want them to hear. And I'm sorry, I skipped something and that just made me think about that. I'll go back to it, but we'll stay here. And then key performance indicators. How many are auto verifying versus manually verifying? How many exceptions are there? How many first pass payments and submissions are going in? How many fixes go back for rework? You know, really measuring how that works, creating dashboards and reports, sharing that information, and doing data-driven improvements. If it didn't work the first time, or if you just want to look to improve it for the next time, because we always want to communicate better. We always want to hit a home run. We always want to go to that next step better. Then use this to prove what you did worked or find ways to make it even better the next time. And I'm going to go back one. No, I think I hit it then. I feel like I missed one. Oh, here in the emails, don't be seen in the crowded email box. We don't want to be spam. We don't want to go into a quarantine so that nobody would ever see the communication you sent. Use a recognizable email address. Do not have do not respond in that email address. Text, if we can do it, get consent. More is not better. Targeted. Make sure that the audience is the person who needs to take that action. Narrow it as best you can. Don't get them confused by messages that don't apply to them. They'll stop opening your emails. For a website, use banners. How many clicks does it take to get them to the information you want them to see on a regular basis? Don't bury it. Town hall meetings, make sure they are aware of it early, get on their calendars, and don't bury the message. If there's something critically important that you need to communicate during that, make sure that it's either at the very end of the meeting when it'll be fresh, or at the beginning of the meeting, so it's the first thing they heard and maybe they'll take that away and they won't have left the meeting. Talk about that. And then apply the learnings. At the beginning, define success and measure it. After you've measured it, turn that data into information. Don't just look at the trend. Don't just look at the numbers. Take those numbers and apply, where did I have those interventions? What did I do during that time to affect these numbers? Learn from that information. Share it. Virginia talked about talking to her agencies and telling them what the financial impact would be if the stick had come around, when they were hard payment on claims based upon that particular thing. Make sure that people have the information that they need to make smart decisions for their business or for the care that they provide, and then use it. Do improvement projects. Update your communications, try something different, test it. Even if it went well the first time, it doesn't mean that you might not do better the next time trying 2 modes of communication, or of 2 different audiences, or of embedding a caregiver communication tool into a provider tool. Always look to how you can do it better the next time, and then measure the impact of those changes. Keep iteratively moving forward with the information that you have based upon the interventions and based upon implementing some of these best practices. I really think we have opportunities that we fail to take advantage of because we don't take the time to learn from what we've done before and implement smart changes after that implementation. So we're going to go back. This was our opportunities. This is how we were going to solve our problems, but this is our engagement model. Let's define our audience. Let's make sure we know who we're targeting and only outreach to people when they're the people who are impacted by a particular change. Let's look at the timing of it and make sure that we get it into the right hands in the right time. Tailor our messages, simple, bulleted, infographic, hooks to get them to go deeper. Select our modes, maybe one, maybe more. Make sure that we're assessing the success of that mode and changing based upon our experience with that mode. And the mode may change based upon who that particular audience is. Last, define and measure our success. Are we achieving what we want to achieve? And how can we work? What are the things that might move that needle in the future if we were going to do it again? Apply the learnings, turn data into information, make sure that we're acting upon that information, and that we are constantly striving to improve the numbers. Any questions or comments?
One question.
Of course.
Is there anybody else on the call than Virginia and I?
Yeah. Yes. Kristen Callahan and Anne Marie Hall. Everybody's here.
We got a quiet group here.
I know we do have a quiet group here.
I just want to introduce myself. You mentioned that there's probably no one new on the call. I'm fairly new to this, so I'm just hoping to learn more by your work on this. And
Of
I mean,
course.
fairly new. It's been since about February or March of this year. So I
That's-
work with
new.
providers. Yeah, I work with providers and I work with individuals and families who hire their own staff and assisting with EVV and issues and resolution. And so it's been quite the journey and learning experience for myself. But I'm getting there. So I do appreciate this opportunity to be a part of this conversation.
Absolutely. And Kristen, know that you can reach out anytime.
Thank you.
Mhm. And if I can't help you, we know that we can connect you with other people who can too.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
All right. Well, I think Virginia dropped off as well. Well, I want to thank you guys for coming. It was a good chat.
Thank you.
I hope that you guys find this valuable, and even in ways that we can work to look at things a little bit differently and try new techniques and really help our customers understand their understand their stakeholders and really move the needle on the things that are important to them.
Thank you for sharing.
Of course.
Have a great day. Thank you so much.
Have a great day, everybody.
Bye-bye.